There are moments when technology feels less like a tool and more like a haunting presence. We trust our phones, our screens, our messages, believing they come only from the living. But what if the last text you receive isn't from someone who still walks this world? Tonight I'll share with you 3 terrifying stories of people who received messages from the dead, warnings, alerts, and invitations that should never have arrived. One girl was told not to open her door, a guard received a fire alarm from a system that no longer existed, and a driver was sent to pick up a passenger waiting at a cemetery. These are the final messages before the silence. I was 21 when it happened. College life had always been chaotic. Long nights, cheap coffee, and the comfort of knowing my best friend and roommate, Clara, was always just a few steps away. We had lived together since freshman year, and though she was quiet and kept to herself, there was a bond between us that I thought nothing could break. But one night, a car accident did. Clara didn't survive. The week that followed was a blur of funerals, condolences, and the unbearable silence of our shared apartment. I moved her things carefully, unable to bring myself to pack them away completely. Her side of the room felt frozen in time, her textbooks still stacked on the desk, a half-finished mug of tea gathering dust. A week after her death, I was lying awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a message from Clara. I remember the exact words burned into my memory. "Don't open the door." At first I froze. My brain scrambled for logic. Maybe someone was using her phone. Maybe it was some cruel mistake. But Clara's phone had been buried with her. Her parents told me so. And the number flashing on my screen wasn't just familiar, it was hers. Before I could think, there was a soft knock on the door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. The knocks came again, louder this time, as if whoever was outside knew I was awake. My breath caught in my throat. I told myself it was just a neighbor, someone who had the wrong door. But then my phone buzzed again. Another message. "Don't answer. Stay quiet." The blood in my veins turned to ice. My hands trembled so violently I almost dropped the phone. I stared at the door, half expecting it to swing open on its own. The knocks grew more erratic, harder, like fists pounding the wood. Whoever was out there wasn't going away. I wanted to scream, to call for help, but the weight of Clara's words pressed down on me. It felt like she was there in the room, whispering in my ear, warning me the way she always did when she thought I was too trusting. I crouched on the floor, back pressed against the wall, phone clutched to my chest, barely daring to breathe. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the knocking stopped. The silence was worse. My ears rang from it, every creak of the apartment amplified until I thought I would lose my mind. I forced myself to crawl to the peephole, even though my whole body resisted. What I saw made me stagger back. The hallway was empty, except for a shadow. A long, distorted silhouette stretched across the floor, though there was nothing there to cast it. And on my phone, another message. "It's gone. You're safe. For now." I locked the door and didn't move for the rest of the night. Every time my phone buzzed after that, I nearly jumped out of my skin, but no more messages came. When morning finally broke, I opened the door to check the hallway. Nothing. No footprints, no sign anyone had been there. I tried to tell myself it was stress, maybe even some kind of grief-induced hallucination. But when I scrolled back through my phone, the messages were still there, every word as clear as the moment they appeared. And the strangest thing, Clara's contact had vanished. The number that sent them no longer existed in my phone. I never heard from her again. But that night changed me. I no longer sleep without the door double-locked, and sometimes, when I wake in the dark hours before dawn, I swear I hear her voice, soft, urgent, telling me to stay quiet. I don't know what was outside my door that night. All I know is that Clara, even in death, kept me from opening it. I've worked night shifts most of my life, and I've seen my share of strange things, shadows that move when no one is there, footsteps echoing in empty hallways. But nothing unsettled me like what happened 3 years ago, when I was assigned to guard an old corporate building downtown. The place had been mostly abandoned for years, only a few floors rented out for storage. During the day, it looked harmless enough, just another forgotten tower in a city full of them. But at night it felt different. The silence pressed in from every corner, broken only by the hum of old fluorescent lights. I was on my second week there when it happened. It was just after 2 a.m., and I was sitting at the security desk flipping through a battered logbook when my phone buzzed. I expected it to be my supervisor checking in. Instead, it was a text message. The sender ID read Fire Control, internal line. The message was simple, all caps. Fire detected. Basement level. Evacuate immediately. My stomach dropped. I knew for a fact the building's fire system had been disconnected long before I started the job. On my first day, my boss had even joked about it. If this place catches fire, just run, because the alarms won't save you. So why was I getting a message from a system that didn't exist anymore? My training told me to call it in, but something stronger pulled me out of my chair. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe duty. Either way, I grabbed my flashlight and made my way to the service elevator. The ride down was agonizingly slow, the old machinery groaning with every floor it passed. When the doors slid open to the basement level, I was hit by a wave of heat. It wasn't suffocating like a real fire, but it felt wrong, stale, heavy, like air trapped in an oven. My flashlight beam cut across the corridor, and that's when I saw it. The concrete walls glowed faintly red, as though light was bleeding through from behind them. At the far end of the hall, the emergency lights flickered, bathing everything in a pulsing crimson. And echoing through the silence was the shrill sound of an alarm, except I knew there were no alarms left in this building. I followed the sound, every step slower than the last, until I reached the heavy steel door that led into the storage area. It was warm to the touch, too warm for a space that should have been empty. I hesitated, heart pounding, and then pushed it open. Inside, the room was filled with thick, choking smoke. But it didn't sting my eyes, and it didn't smell like fire. The shapes of old filing cabinets loomed in the haze, and through it all, I could make out figures, dozens of them, standing motionless in the glow. They weren't moving, but I swear they were watching me. I froze in the doorway, trying to convince myself it was a trick of the smoke, shadows cast by my flashlight. But the figures didn't waver. They stood still, row after row, their outlines too sharp to be illusions. Then my phone buzzed again. My hand shook as I lifted it. Another message from the same sender. We never got out. The alarm cut off. The red glow vanished. I was plunged into total darkness, the kind that swallows sound and reason. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I fumbled for the door behind me, but my hand met only empty air. A whisper broke the silence. Dozens of voices, overlapping, right beside my ear. I couldn't make out the words, but the weight of them filled the room. My flashlight flickered back to life for just a second, and the storage room was empty. No smoke. No figures. Just dust and forgotten boxes. When I stumbled upstairs, shaking, dawn was breaking through the lobby windows. I told no one. I didn't need to, because when I checked my phone, the messages were gone. The logs showed no sender, no history, as if they'd never existed. Still, sometimes on quiet nights, when I'm working another shift, I'll feel that same heat at my back, and I'll remember the words I read in the basement. We never got out. I've been driving nights for nearly a decade. Most people think it's a dangerous job because of drunk passengers or bad neighborhoods, but the truth is, I was never afraid of the living. What happened one night last winter changed that forever. It was close to 1 a.m. when the request came through my rideshare app. The pickup point was on the outskirts of town, a neighborhood I didn't recognize. At first, I thought nothing of it. I'd driven stranger routes before. But as I glanced at the map, my chest tightened. The pin wasn't at a house or a business. It was dropped directly in the middle of St. Augustine's Cemetery. I almost canceled, but curiosity and habit got the better of me. Maybe it was some prank, I thought. Teenagers messing around. So I accepted the ride and started driving. The farther I went, the emptier the streets became. By the time I pulled up to the cemetery gates, the night felt unnaturally still, the kind of silence that makes you check if your ears are working. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message from the passenger. I'm waiting by the main gate. I slowed the car and shone my headlights toward the iron gates. At first, there was nothing but rows of stone markers and bare trees swaying in the cold wind. Then, just at the edge of the light, I saw a figure. Someone was standing perfectly still near the gate. Their clothes looked outdated, maybe a long coat, but the details blurred in the beam as though the light didn't want to touch them. I rolled down the window halfway and called out, "Did you request this ride?" No answer. The figure raised one hand slowly, like a signal. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the doors. But when I looked down at the app, something made my stomach drop. The passenger's name was blank. Just an empty profile with no photo, no rating. My phone buzzed again. A text, "Thank you for coming. Please drive me home." I looked back toward the gate. The figure was gone. The road ahead was empty, no one there. My pulse hammered in my ears. I was about to cancel the ride when another message came through. This time from my own number. "I'm already in the car." My hands tightened on the steering wheel as the chills settled over the cab. The air inside the car felt heavier, colder, though I hadn't opened a window. I forced myself to glance in the rearview mirror. For a second, I thought the back seat was empty. Then the mirror flickered, as if the glass itself shuddered, and I saw it. A pale outline, sitting directly behind me. No face, no features, just the weight of someone who shouldn't have been there. I spun around, but the seat was empty. The smell hit me then, sharp and earthy, like damp soil freshly turned. My phone buzzed again on the dashboard. Another message, still from my own number. "Drive." I don't remember much of the ride after that. My vision blurred, and the GPS seemed to guide itself, the glowing blue line pulling me deeper into the back roads. When I finally stopped, I realized I was no longer following streets. The map marker blinked, dead center inside the cemetery grounds. I stumbled out of the car, desperate for air. The headstones stretched in every direction, endless and silent. And right in front of me was one grave, the name carved deep into stone, the same name attached to the ride request. The screen of my phone lit one final time. "I'm home." Then the ride closed itself, and the request vanished. I never drove nights again. But sometimes, when I pass that cemetery during the day, I'll see a shadow near the gate, standing perfectly still, waiting. Those were 3 stories of messages that should never have been received, warnings, alarms, and rides that came from beyond the world of the living. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, there's something deeply unsettling about technology crossing a line it was never meant to cross. A text from a friend who's already gone. An alarm from a system that doesn't exist. A passenger who only wanted a ride back to their grave. Each of these messages carried the same weight, a reminder that the line between our world and whatever waits beyond is thinner than we think. If you've ever received a strange call or text you couldn't explain, maybe you know that feeling already. The chill in your spine when the screen lights up with something that shouldn't be possible. These were their stories. What about yours? Have you ever gotten a message from someone who shouldn't have been able to send it? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, the next buzz in your pocket might not be from the living.